What's up, Bombshells? Welcome to Bombshell 1111 Podcast, Therapy for Women of Color. My name is Kia, and I'm your host. Generally, podcasts request donations, but I want you to show love by simply subscribing to my social media platforms by visiting my website at www.bombshell1111podcast.com. I want to see thousands of subscribers on this platform. Leave your comments and I'll show love by shouting you out on my social media platforms such as Instagram and Facebook. I want to thank you for your continued support as always. And with that being said, let's jump into this new episode.
Hello. My name is Ashe. I'm here to drop some bombs with Bombshell 1111.
Welcome back, Bombshells. I'm Kia, and I'm your host. Tonight, you guys will be discussing women's empowerment and equality with my special guest, Ashe. So without further ado, Bombshells, let's get into it. Welcome, Ashe. How are you?
I am well. All the more for being here. Thank you.
Thank you so much for coming on and wanting to drop some bombs tonight on Bombshell 11 Podcast. I'm so excited to have you on. As I told you, I was excited just from even understanding and knowing what your name was. I knew you were meant to be on this podcast tonight. So thank you so much for being on.
Yes. I'm excited. I'm excited to be here. Thank you.
You're more than welcome. So then let's just go ahead and jump right in. So down below in the description, I'll have the bio, of course, with, telling people who you are, what you do, where you're from. But I always like to start off the podcast with allowing my guests to just do a short description of who are you, where you're from, what do you do, Ashe?
I love it. I'm just laughing. I love the energy here. I'm Ashe Lytle. I actually work with women to help them stop trying to balance and carry the world on their back and shoulders, something that we tend to do, and really focus on cultivating that inner world, that inner sanctuary, so that we can navigate in our boldness and in our power. I'm here from Oakland, California, in the East Bay, and hanging out with you.
Thank you so much for coming on. I can't really hear you. Can you move a little bit closer to the mic?
Oh, you cannot hear me?
Yeah, it was like a little bit distance, but I got you now. That's really good.
Okay.
So thank you for your intro. So let's just go ahead and jump right into our topic for tonight. Ashe, what are some of your personal experiences or reasons that motivated you to think or care about women's empowerment?
Ooh, so many. I will say that the most critical or the most pivotal moment in terms of empowering women, and more in terms of our own acknowledgement of the need to self-empower, was when a phenomenal leader who was just really committed to cultivating her team, leading her team, nourishing her team, nurturing her team, and they had just really won this historical legislation in a specific state. And on a Friday, they were celebrating, and she said to each one of them, go home, go nourish yourself, go rest, and take care. That was her last parting words. Friday night, she went into the ER, and by Saturday, she had passed. And what was so revealing to me in that moment was the fact that she's a first line leader, so she is the first line in the family that everyone comes to, the first line in the community that everyone comes to, the first line in the organization, but she wasn't the first line for herself. And so she had some medical conditions that she didn't take care of. And we all think we're going to get to it. And so she had given so much energy to restore voting rights to those incarcerated and to her team, but in the end, she wasn't present to even enjoy it. And so that moment, when I realized that we are so busy pouring into one another, but we really do forget to pour into ourselves.
Oh, wow. I love it. You making me think about a lot of times where I'll have a scheduled doctor's appointment and I'll be like, I'll reschedule it because I gotta work. I'll reschedule it because I gotta work. That was my confirmation, a reminder that I need to get on that. Thank you for that. So before we get deep into our conversation for tonight, for the listening audience who may not have an understanding or knowledge of what women's empowerment or equality means, define women's empowerment and equality, and what is the difference between the two?
Good question. So when I think about empowerment, I think about women owning, because here's the thing, we have the power. Now, whether we acknowledge it, whether we cultivate it, and whether we even decide we're going to deep dive into it, something completely different. And so we have this power within ourselves. It is that is brilliant. It is that comes from within. And it is that actually cannot be diminished by anything or anyone, period. However, when I'm talking about that empowerment, I am talking about the recognition, the understanding, and the embracement of that authentic, organic energy, right? That empowers us, that calls us forth to live unapologetically in our greatness. When I talk about women empowerment, I'm talking about being able to walk through life in your own individual rhythm, not looking to the left or the right to see what others are doing, because you're really, really clear about who you are and just moving forward along that path. When I talk about women empowerment, I'm talking about being able to give honor to oneself, even in fact that might make someone else uncomfortable, even in fact someone feels like you need to explain it, which you don't, even if it means that someone disagrees. When I talk about empowerment, I'm really just talking about the God-given right, the responsibility that we have to live in this flow that only you uniquely have, that only I uniquely have, and to be able to do so in such a way that that aligns with our values, that aligns with our ideals, and aligns with our vision. And when we do that, not only do we uplift ourselves, but in uplifting ourselves, we give permission to others to uplift themselves, right?
Right. Oh my God, you just uplifted me in those 2 minutes. Jesus. Oh my God, I love that. Oh, you don't even know, Shay. I love it. Okay. So let's go ahead, let's get deeper. So what are some of the benefits of having, empowered women like in within an organization?
So the benefit, the gift actually, and the blessing when we have empowered women in our organizations is that it's like this centered force that radiates. Let me just say that just radiates throughout, right? And it kind of ignites each and every one of us. And in that beam of radiation, then we are feeling somewhat called to live and to work and to lead in the way that we're called to do that. So when I'm working with empowered women, they remind me not to settle. When I'm working with empowered women, they hold me accountable to what it is I know that I can do, but I sometimes talk myself out of doing. I sometimes convince myself I can't do. When I work with empowered women, they also give you permission to rest, because they understand that power is not in continuous activity. It's not even in continuously like, I got to move forward. Sometimes the empowerment comes in the stillness. When I work with empowered women, every now they think outside the box. They ideate outside the box, and that's cool. That's cool. But when you got to lead outside the box, then you recognize you got to link yourself with individuals that can hold you when sometimes you're too tired to hold yourself. So those empowered women are non-judgmental. They are supporting unconditionally, and they truly, truly have your back. And so when you feel like in that moment of leading in your mission or your movement, they are so grounded in themselves that they know that to link with you doesn't take away, it only adds to them.
Yes, I agree. Love that. So, Ashay, what do you think is the most significant barrier to female empowerment?
Mm. So many things. So I work with a lot of women of color leaders, even specifically Black women leaders around the world, from Brazil to Cuba, to here in the States. And there's a saying that my mentor used to say to me, and he just said this to Black women, to women of color, and he talked about really what power is, and he talked about how we actually we're not in our power as much. He says power, we're living in this false illusion of power when someone has defined our reality, dictated what our priorities are, and then we find ourselves hustling and working hard to fulfill those realities and to fulfill those visions, which aren't our own. So you think about social media, you think about media itself, right? Mm-hmm. And you have these ideals that are going out, and we think they're our own, but we haven't really taken the time to really examine, are these truly my ideologies? Are these truly my values? Or am I actually allowing someone else to define my reality? And now I'm hustling to fulfill someone else's vision or narrative. And so and that looks like how you define success. What is really success for you? Have you delved into the layers of what it really means to be successful for yourself? I'm not talking about just going to go get a pedicure or taking a weekend off or anything else. I'm really, really folding back what that definition of success is and making sure you live aligned to that. Do you really understand what resilience means? We often are so busy trying to bounce back. And that's one of the things I see as women leaders. We feel that, and my mama would say it too, like, you know what, you got to keep working. You don't let them see the sweat. You don't ever, there's this ideology around this. But we forget that resilience is not an individual-based item or process. It is collective. And we don't lean into each other enough. And so we talk about the empowerment, but we got to actually practice and live that. Mm-hmm. And so many of my leaders, they're great performers. I'm like, when I started working with them, one of the leaders, I was telling her about this project, CEO, and she's like, oh my God, it's just so great. I really love this. I'm on board. Let me know how I can endorse you. That was the statement. Mm-hmm. By the time I got home, what was so amazing that she actually sent me this long email, and she says, you really are talking about me. Every day I come in depressed. I'm tired. I feel burdened. I feel like I don't know how to move forward, and I have no one to connect to. Because if I tell someone how I feel, I'm afraid they're going to judge me and say that I'm inadequate or incompetent, right? Mm. And so creating a space where we really can link and connect to one another and know that we won't be judged, but really be uplifted. And I think we got to really start looking at how we truly uplift one another and what that really looks like and what that means.
And you kind of went right into my next question, because my next question for you was, how do you empower yourself and the women around you?
Oh, that is a question. And let me just tell you. That is a question. So one of the things that a group of us have been doing, that I've been leading, and it's so funny because I often teach what I need to learn or be reminded. And there's we know there are no surprises or coincidences. And this year has been a little bit challenging for many reasons. And so one of the things that I have been really huge on is boundaries, like setting boundaries, articulating your boundaries, and honoring your boundaries. And that to me is a form of self-care. And that also is a form of empowerment as well. And so with my sister circle, that's how we hold each other accountable, right? Because most of the time when we hold boundaries, and we're going to get some resistance, we're going to get some individuals that say we've changed, we're going to get some individuals that maybe try to make us feel bad or guilty about it. But the boundaries are to create that sacred space for yourself. So that's one. The other is, I'm going to go back to resilience. There's this perception of resilience is to bounce back, and I'm totally against that. Resilience is not about bouncing back. That's great. That's a single narrative that society has said. What I know about my resilience and my resilience with my group of sisters and circle is that our resilience is collective. and that our resilience is grounded in our historical resilience, it's grounded in our cultural resilience, and it's generational as well. And so, really, when I need to fall, I need to fall. And quite honestly, I don't always need to get back up. I know in this society, we like to celebrate getting up really quickly, but a lot of times we need to keep our behinds down because we need to be still. We need to take rest. We need to examine what's really going on. And we need to be okay with where we are at times. And I know that goes against so many things that maybe we've been taught, even that I was taught. But when you have in the collective resilience is what allows you to do that. So if you need to take a rest and lie down, I got you, right? I'm covering for you. I'm holding space for you. And so that's what we do. I'm like, okay, you're trying to bounce back too fast. You're trying to reframe the situation too quickly so that you can make sense of something that really feels like it's incomprehensible, but we want to rush and reframe so we can make it feel good and make sense when maybe we need to sit in the discomfort, right? Because it's in the discomfort that wisdom's going to come, that understanding is going to come, and that courage is going to come. So I'm a little bit counter against that. And here's another thing that, because I'm going to just be really, can I be honest with you? Can I be transparent? Was having a really challenging time, and I'm all about the practice of gratitude, and there's science behind it. It talks about how our brain behaves when we are tuned in to gratitude. But I'm gonna be honest, there are days where I was just my dad was sick, and I was worried, I was scared. There was all these things going on, and I was just trying to focus on all the things I'm grateful for, and it just wasn't working. And then I felt bad that it wasn't working, but then I realized that I actually just needed grace. And sometimes we just need to have grace. And it's okay, because grace just allows all of that. All the things that we feel like we need to do but can't do. Grace comes in, ushers in, right? Surrounds us. And I realized in that moment, sometimes it's not, the gratitude is great, but in that moment I knew that I needed grace. And then through the grace, then I can get to some of those areas of being able to write, I'm grateful for this, I'm grateful for that. And so I'm finding that, this goes back to me to my what is empowerment. I'm finding that I need to do things that work for me,
right,
and aligns with me. And that's part of our own journey to do.
So important. And I love how you talk about boundaries. That's something that ironically I'm working on as well. And how you said some people may not agree. They may think that you've changed, but that's something that you're a form of self-care that I'm doing for myself. So yeah, because I'm always the one tending to run to people's knees and trying to save everybody. So yeah. So let's just keep going here. Asha, how can we expand women's links to each other? For example, like mentorship, because as you stated, you have a mentor, coaching and networking. How can we expand in those areas? What are some suggestions or tips or things that you think that we could do in order to improve in those areas?
So I think that so in corporations, I'm always reaching out. I completely reach out. I'm always trying to look for ways to connect as well. I also know and recognize that it's not always about me. So what I like to do is connect individuals to people in my network. Sometimes I feel like we reach out to someone to mentor, it becomes our responsibility. But it goes back again, I want to keep talking about this collective force that we are as women. And so even if we are talking about coaching or mentoring or sponsoring, right? Sponsoring is a different form of mentoring. It's a lot deeper than that. I look at who in my network, who in my circle can support someone, because I'm really mindful about my bandwidth and what I can do. Because or you don't know, but I'm the one that's like, okay, I can mentor everybody. I can coach everyone. The other item of it is also creating these communities or sister circles as well. Mm-hmm. I think that's really, really important for us to have these sister circles, because let me take a step back. Many of my leaders, they're very established, they're great. You look at them, there's no issue, supposedly. What was really missing was the fact that I was telling them leaders need to be led as well. healers of the community need to be healed. And so we oftentimes have to also just remind one another, right, that you need to take a step back and step down and rest. And you need to come into a space where you can do that. So we need to have more these, these spaces, these sacred spaces, these sanctuaries where women can come and collect and not feel like they're going to be judgment, that there's going to be sometimes even expectations. And so creating these spaces where we get together and I'm like, you just need to come to just kind of like, you need to come and drink from the well. Great. Let's do that. And we can really create sister circles among ourselves, because when we do that, like with your group of friends and my group, and then even if we begin to link our circles, it would gradually and organically begin to grow. Right. So I bring leaders from the States to Brazil all the time. And that's one way that I create like a mentorship and also coaching. And they don't know anything. And this is like most times, so in Brazil, they speak Portuguese. So I'm also having to coach and mentor through languages, but there is something really powerful when you know that there's an alignment and people have found a way to navigate through what could be a language barrier. And they are now linking and connecting across the country, across the world. I think that if we are going to create these sister circles, we also have to be honest though.
Yeah.
We got to be honest with one another. So if I say that I'm not feeling up to par, I'm not feeling great, I need to be able to say that. And I need to know that you're not going to judge me. And so mentorship, I think I want to take it, this one I want to take a deeper. Mentorship is great and I love that. But even for the ones that I mentor, like I just got off the phone with someone and she's picking up her family member who was incarcerated, right? Flew across the country, pick up this person, their family member. And I look at, these are the things that we're doing. I'm like, and how are you supporting yourself? You flew across the country. How are you going to replenish yourself? What is it that you need? And I think it's important that we continue to reach out to people to do that. Because for myself, as a person that's always a giver, it's hard for me to receive. And so my circle doesn't wait for me to receive. They just deliver. And I do the same thing for those in my organization, in my job. I don't actually even ask anymore. I observe and then I just deliver something.
I like that. I love that. I love that. And we're going to get into some of the things that you do, the services that you provide in just a minute here. I have 2 more questions for you, and then we're going to jump right in. What advice do you have for women who want to work in a male-dominated field?
Ooh.
I told you I had the questions for you.
Yes. I chuckle. So, and I know we're going to get into what I do in a moment, but I'm just going to share this incident where I was facilitating a 2-day training, and they were surgeons. And when I walked in, I opened up the discussion, introduced myself, and just, said, are there any questions, any comments? And someone said to me, what possibly could you teach us?
Wow.
Yes. And that's what I said to you. I was like, wow. Okay. Good morning to you too, sir. And, this goes back to you when you asked me what is empowerment. So I had to, in that 2 seconds, I had to coach myself. And this is where I had to ground myself. And this is where I'm talking about, be really clear about your own power. Be really clear about your own grounding of your power. And when I talk about that, I want to be clear that this is something that's easy. It's nothing hard. It flows graciousness. I'm not talking about force. Sometimes we confuse force with power. So in that moment, I had to make sure I was grounded. I said, okay, Shay, all right. And then because there's a part of me is like, oh, I'm about to prove something. And then I had to say, but why? I don't have anything to prove. Mm-hmm. And so I had to change my posture, because the posture in me, mostly, but challenging me? What? You kind of trying to embarrass me in front of a group of 20 surgeons? What? They're already mad because they're there because, they could be in the operating room. But then I also had to just lean back like, you know what? I don't have anything. When you are standing in your power, it does not need an alibi.
Hello.
It does not need an explanation. And I just had to lean back. And it was counterintuitive, I'm going to be honest. But I was like, I don't have anything here to prove. See, I'm doing what I do. What I do well. And in that, I didn't even have to communicate anything after that. I communicated in my action. I communicated in my service. And I communicated in how I delivered what I did. And that's the same thing for women who are in male-dominated areas. It's going to be challenging. It's going to be challenging at times. The remarks, the comments, forget, we talk about these microaggressions. I'm like, where do we get the word micro? This is macro. There's nothing micro about this stuff that I'm experiencing right now. And so you got to practice actively every time, grounding yourself in your power. The woman I was talking about was that one. She's like, I'm not only just the only woman, I'm the only Black woman.
Wow.
And every morning she had to, so you know what we did? I'm like, you need to call me on the way to work. And it wasn't just me, but we really just start setting her up, right? Because even though it feels like you're going into that boardroom or that conference room by yourself, you know you have a link of powerful women with your back right now. And so we found the ways to actually ground in the power, your power. That's your empowerment. Your empowerment doesn't come from anyone else. It comes from that understanding, right? And so you can stand in that, and you might have to remind yourself all the time to do that. But that's also when you ask me about women empowerment. We have to be able to support one another. So if I know that so-and-so's having a meeting at 10 o'clock, who's on duty? Who's on duty before she goes in the meeting? Who's going to send her a text during the meeting? And who's on duty after the meeting? See, that's when we talk about covering one another,
yes,
right?
Yes.
And then at the end of the day, who's she checking in with? Now, maybe she doesn't want to talk. We could. You want to text? But you're going to check in with somebody. You're going to check in with somebody today, sis.
Accountability.
Yes. And that's that part on this old school too. Like, I don't really feel like, no, you're going to talk. I just need 2 minutes. I need to hear your voice. And that's that activeness. That's what I'm talking about, that collective resilience. You don't have to go in there by yourself. And so if you choose to go into a male-dominated industry, my question to you is, how have you positioned? Where's your group of women? How are you, and if you don't have it, then you need to talk to me so we can talk about how to set yourself up. Because when you walk in there by yourself, seemingly, you need to know that you are walking with an army of this powerful group of women that have you. So when they come with the microaggressions and they come with the remarks, and they try to belittle you, it truly can begin to start rolling off of you. And then if you need some nourishment and you need some restoration, or you need someone to remind you of your greatness, you can do that as well. And we have to actively do that. Most of the women in these positions, we don't reach out. We're too proud. Now we are first to give, right? And we first to give, yes, but we don't reach out because we feel like it's maybe some type of, like, honestly, we feel inadequate. Like, I should be able to deal with this on my own. I should be able to face this by myself. I shouldn't have to. See, that's a narrative. Someone told you that narrative, and that's not true.
Yes. Yeah. Oh, yes. Woo. I would love to be in one of your workshops. Jesus. Ashay, what advice do you have for people who want to do more?
What advice I have for people that want to do more?
Yes. Want to do more. What advice would you give women who want to do more in reference to women empowerment and equality?
Okay. Who want to work with it. So if individuals that really want to work with women empowerment, and I don't mean to be, funny, but I want to actually even ask, when people do that, I'm like, so what is it about women empowerment? Like, you asked me, what does that mean to you? What does that really mean? Because here's where I find, I'm gonna be really honest, you guys who listen. If we are going to commit to women empowerment, then we need to do so unconditionally. That means that the person who gets on your nerves, you still got to commit to making sure that person stands in their power, even if in fact, sometimes what they do gets on your last nerve. That also means then that you don't get in your comfort zone when something is going on. That means you're going to step out of your comfort zone. That means that sometimes you're going to be that voice for that person as well. We talk about women empowerment, and and I wonder if we really understand, like, are you going to witness for me? That's really what we're asking. Are you going to witness for me? Are you going to stand with me? Are you going to walk with me? And are you going to carry me when it's necessary? Empowerment is cute as a word that we use, but what is the soul of the word? And so if you are unwilling to really go 100%, we really not empower one another. That's partly why we see a lot of fraction. We see a lot of dissension. We see a lot of battle amongst ourselves. Because again, I'm going to go back to my point. Power is defying someone else's reality, telling them that that is the truth, and then have them work towards that. So all the back and forth, or the arguing, or the putting down, or that's not cute. That doesn't do anything. So women empowerment means that, and that even goes for. I'm also going to say for individuals that want to be our allies. If you're unwilling to speak up at work, I really don't care that you march on the street. You can protest all you want, but if you're not willing to protest in the meeting, when someone says something that goes against me or goes against ethnicity or culture or stuff like that, if you're unwilling to do that, then you're not about the empowerment. If you're unwilling to speak up on behalf of someone, then you're not about it. See, it's uncomfortable. You got to get out your comfort zone. You got, I will say this, for example, there's a woman, one of the most difficult women in the world I've ever worked with. My goodness. Oh my goodness. So incredibly difficult to me. I just felt, but I realized some things were going on, and I reached out. Shut me down, was kind of rude about it,
Yeah.
Oh, well, okay. But I continued to reach out, and what I found out later, not in that time until we connected. It took some time, but she was dealing with breast cancer.
Oh wow.
Didn't tell anyone about it, and was just going through that on her own. And so I'm not saying that we allow anyone to step on us. That's not what I'm saying. But it does mean that we have to be able to witness even when someone else is unwilling to witness for their own self. And so if you want to do more, the question is, are you willing to stand when it's most uncomfortable? Because it's easy to support someone when they're doing well, or, if you guys share the same values, the same ideals. But if I'm really about women empowerment, I'm going to even go here. There is a woman, she's here, and we're good friends, but she was really clear. I can't stand American women. Y'all get on my nerves. I was like, what? Tell me more about this, Natalia.
Wow.
Tell me more about this. Tell me more about this. And, but it was such a great conversation. And we actually had, really, she's in my circle. She loves everyone. But the question is leading with curiosity so we can learn about one another. So if you want to do more, do more. Do more. Start with your own circle. Like, we can sign up with organizations, which is great too, right? We can support organizations that support other women. But what I find still is that when the organizations are great. When I go in these organizations and do consulting, what I'm not seeing is the support that we say we are committed to. I'm not seeing it in action. We're not living it out loud. We're not bridging the gap. We'll march. Yeah, we'll march. We're gonna go march. But if you can't stand up for me at work, then I don't know. Are you about empowerment? Is it just only when it's convenient?
True. That is so true, because I experience that in my workplace every day. Every day. So I want to kind of go back to the top of our conversation before we jump into the services that you provide. Ashay, you were talking a lot about standing in your power and things of that nature. What do you feel as if is needed for women to learn to stand confidently in their power?
The first thing is to not even worry about being confident about it. It takes courage to be able to do that. And if we wait until we are confident, we're going to be waiting for a while. Confidence comes on its own timetable. It doesn't come when we want it to come, but if we can stand courageously in our power. And then when we stand in courageously, it still means we have some fear, we have some doubt. When we stand in our power, it means being willing to make mistakes and be okay with that, because it's really just learning and growth. When we're standing in our power, it means be willing to maybe break a cycle of old ways of thinking. And it's okay to think differently, even if everybody else is thinking a certain way, or even if family members and friends say that you lost your mind. You'd be like, yeah, I sure have. Got a new one moving in a different direction. Yes, thank you. You know, when you stand in your power, the other thing is, have you taken time to really get to know you? Like really, really, really get quiet and I know that feels like, I'll show you that's going to take too long, or that's a lot. It doesn't happen overnight or anything else like that. But the more we get to know ourselves, then the more we know of our own power. And I mean like in the quiet time. We can go do our spa days and we can do our mani-pedi. But I really just want you to sit in your stuff. And I want you to sit in the stuff that stinks the most. And I really want you to explore that, because that's where your power is within that as well. Like, oh, this is what I did. Okay. Let me look at why I did that, right? And then be willing to forgive yourself and let it go. So standing in power means forgiving yourself, really forgiving yourself. We secretly hold on to stuff with ourselves. Even if we say we've forgiven ourselves, I find sometimes we still have some regret. We secretly have some doubt. We secretly have some guilt over what we didn't do. And so really to practice forgiveness. Power is an organic element that is actually consecrated in our energy. And the more that we can let that energy out through like forgiveness and loving upon ourselves and loving deeply, it allows us to be able to move into this world without having to really be locked into the world, if you know what I mean. Mm-hmm. So you can go into that industry where there's all men that might look at you in a certain way because you're really clear about who you are. And if you need to leave, you're also really clear, I need to leave because of whatever that is. Standing in your power is a process. It's not something that you just do and it's done. If you think you're done, then you're not standing in your power. Every day you grow and evolve, and so should your power. And so you're constantly just deepening your knowledge and your growth around who am I? What am I bringing to this world? What am I calling into this world? How am I showing up in this world? But more importantly, how am I showing up for myself? Like, when is the last time you've been real generous to yourself? Like, real generous. I'm not talking about shopping sprees or anything else like that. I'm talking about generosity. What does that look like to you to be generous to yourself? See, all these things are connected to unleashing your power.
I love that. So let's finally get into the services and things that you provide. Talk a bit about that, Ashay.
Oh, let's talk about it. We didn't even really get into the equality equity, but I do a lot of work around inclusive leadership, and I specifically call it inclusive leadership. It's not just leadership development. You cannot lead if you're not leading inclusively. It just doesn't work.
Right.
It just doesn't.
Right.
It does not work. So I do work with a lot of organizations around inclusive leadership. I know there's this whole thing around diversity, equity, and inclusion. And, diversity's been around for a long time. It's been around for decades. And so I do work with organizations on how really they're living that out. Is it showing up in your policies? Is it showing up? Can I see it when I walk in your organization? Do I see it on your board? Do I see it in your protocol? So I do a lot of work with that. My joy, I just get so excited. Early when you were saying that you couldn't hear me, it's because I was so excited to be on the show. I realized I was up out of my seat. And you like, come back. I was like, oh yeah, let me come back. I forgot.
It's okay.
Came back to mine. But I love working with women leaders around the world. I am so honored to have worked with one of the first Black women presidents of colleges in Brazil, or one of the first women to really lead the women's rights over in Cuba. I work with leaders who are in the trenches, behind the scenes, but really, really working with them to not just lead their community, because we do that. I'm really great at strategic planning, road mapping, right, and implementing that. But I'm also really good at making sure that the person leading it is doing their own inner self strategic planning and road mapping as well.
Right.
So, but I do have the absolute honor to go into organizations and help them achieve equity in their target objectives and goals. But I also have the opportunity to work with women leaders who are leading these movements and leading these missions and creating a space for them to recover, to recharge, and to heal. And then what I love is that I get to connect all these women together in a really unique sisterhood as well. So I do that when I'm doing conferences in Brazil. So I do conferences in Brazil a couple times a year with women leaders. You need to go. I'm just going to tell you, you need to go. You need to go to one of these. If you haven't been to Brazil and done any of these conferences, it's amazing. It's just amazing. I also do local retreats here where we come together and connect. You were asking me about mentoring and coaching. And I think sometimes some of my leaders forget they need mentoring and coaching themselves.
Yeah.
And so I like to bring us together in a circle to break bread and to be able to do that. And then I speak. You know, I'm on a lot of stages speaking on various topics, from inclusive leadership, women's empowerment, and what it really means to lead an equitable organization.
Well, I thank you so much for coming on here tonight and sharing all your knowledge and tools. But I still have a few more questions before we get out of here tonight. I promise, and then we're done. Is there anything you feel that we missed that you'd like to share with the listening audience, Ashe?
I love this. Well, first of all, I'm so glad people are listening to you, because you are really delivering some really great nuggets of wisdom as I listen to some of your podcasts. And I just want to highlight that.
Thank you.
I want to highlight that.
Thank you.
I don't think we missed anything. I want to emphasize, because sometimes we're talking quickly, so there's tools or structures. I want to just really emphasize that when we talk about power, it's nothing airy-fairy, that it truly is scientific. Let me just be clear. Like, it really is. Like, I love how science just kind of catches up with other, like, our spirituality. Spirituality is ahead of it, and then science comes 10, 15 years later and confirms certain things. Like, oh yeah, you actually do have this, you have that. Each and every one of individuals that are listening has this really unique, beautiful power bubbling up within you, and it is calling you to live it out loud, and to live it out loud according to your vision and your rhythm. I want to really just also ask you, don't ask people to understand it, because it's not for them to understand, because it's your power and your energy and your vision. And I just want to give you permission or invitation or affirmation to really do that, because when you can live in your power, then it gives me permission to continue to do the same thing. And then while you're living your power, won't you reach out to 2 or 3 other people and share that so they can do it as well? So I just want to emphasize that and encourage others to do that, because we really need one another. Our resilience is collective. It's culturally, it's historical, and it's also collective.
Oh, I love that. And so, Ashe, how can the listening audience get connected to you for your services, or just for more information, or just to follow you to see what you have coming up in the near future?
You can visit me at ashelytle.com. And you can also visit me, and this is going to be the link, at iambodacious.com as well. And also my handle as well on IG is iambodacious.
And before we head out tonight, what piece of advice would you like to leave with listening audience?
The best thing that you can do for yourself in this moment is to be willing to break the mold of the old and step into the freedom of the new that you have envisioned for yourself today. Just do one thing, whether it's scary or not. And matter of fact, it should be scary. Matter of fact, make it scary, because then you know you're moving out your comfort zone. Be willing to break the mold and move into that new, inviting space that you've been envisioning and flirting with in your mind, and go for it. Go for it. We need you to live as bold and as possible in your own goodness.
Oh, thank you for that. I'm gonna test that. I'm gonna do that. I'm gonna try one thing that I think I want to do, that that I thought about that I wanted to do. I've never done, and see how it goes. I'm gonna try it. Okay, because you know what? I'm gonna tell you this really quick. I've been reading a lot of things on the subconscious mind. Learning about, words are powerful, thoughts are powerful, all that kind of thing. And some of the things that I've been learning, they say that, instead of going the same way that you may normally go to work, go a different way to work. Changing your routine, learning something new. It's just really important for your mental health and your well-being and wellness and things like that. And I've been trying to practice that a bit more. So when you said that, just kind of reminded me of that. Yeah.
Yes. Please do.
So, Ashe, last thing. Did I ask you? Let me see. Make sure I got all my questions here for you. Before we get out of here tonight, I know we've done a lot of talking here, and I don't want your contacts to go lost in our conversation. Before we end tonight's podcast, just one more time here, where can a listening audience check you out at?
You can find me at AcheLytle.com, AcheLytle.com, and I am Boldacious, BOLDACIOUS. Some people say, oh, is that bootylicious? No, it's I am Boldacious, because we are bold and audacious in our power.
And I'm some people, because I thought that initially until you told me. I'm some people.
I love it though. I love it.
So again, thank you guys for tuning in with us tonight. That brings us to the end of this episode. Thanks to Ashe for joining. We hope that you were able to hear something beneficial. And with that being said, thanks for listening. And always remember, you are a bomb within your own shell. Peace, love, and light, you guys. Until next time, good night. If you enjoyed this podcast, please make sure you subscribe so you're notified when a new episode is posted. Rate, review, and share this podcast with your family and friends. Thanks so much for listening, and I hope you're leaving with some valuable information that can help you on your personal journey. Also, check us out on Facebook, YouTube, and Instagram at Bombshell 1111 or at Bombshell 1111 TV. You can also check out our mental health page, Your Health is Your Wealth, on Facebook, which is a page created to inform and support individuals with mental health and other health conditions. And with that being said, always remember, you guys, you are a bomb within your own shell. And until next time, peace, love, and light.